Every year for the last few years I've had on my, goals or resolutions is balance, that word. This year and last year I just struck it off, put a big fat line through it and was like, get stuffed.
Building a business is tough and doing it alone even tougher. Welcome to She Talks, your go-to podcast for raw, relatable and ridiculously useful business advice. I'm Lisa Jones and I'm both a mum and a serial entrepreneur, and I'm here to help share real stories and proven strategies to help you scale up your business. Let's do this together. Hey lovely, Lisa here, and before we dive into today's episode of She Talks, I have got a little favour to ask you. If this podcast has ever made you feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more inspired, or a little less alone in this wild ride of running your own business, then I would love you to leave us a review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. I know it sounds like a small thing, but it really helps get She Talks into the ears of more incredible women just like you, and it helps us keep bringing you the good stuff. And if there's an episode that made you go, oh my God, every woman in business needs to hear this, please share it with someone you love. Text it to your business bestie, add it to your stories, or drop the link in a group chat. However you do it, we are so grateful. All right, that's it from me. Let's jump in. Could your escape plan become a $50 million global brand? In this episode, I chat with Dani from Kulani Kinis, who along with her husband Alex built a $50 million a year swimwear empire from a creative side hustle. What started as a dream to escape the rigidity of government work and bottle the joy of Hawaiian holidays turned into one of Australia's fastest growing global swimwear brands. Dani shares the raw and real journey behind the scenes, from humble beginnings at a trade show booth no one could find, to scaling to 70 staff, nurturing 600 stockists and redefining success on her own terms. We talk wholesale strategies, values-led leadership, family, burnout, and why balance is a myth worth letting go. If you've ever questioned whether you're cut out for big growth, then this episode will remind you just how far heart, hustle, and one strong why can take you. So, Dani, women start businesses for all kinds of reasons. It might be more freedom, the chance to be creative, to solve a problem, or to set themselves up financially. I want to know, why did you start Kulani Kinis?
Yes, an awesome place to start. So I think when thinking about that, the first word that comes to mind is escape. So I really wanted to escape where I was and find freedom. So essentially you asked that. So I was working as a psychologist. So I didn't necessarily want to start a business to change careers and have a whole new way of life and a new way of being. But I really wanted something that was going to give me an outlet. So essentially a side hustle, and just be something that would be where I could be creative. I could bottle a feeling that I had. We traveled to Hawaii for a number of years between work. So, you do your year of work and then, you have your 2-week vacation. So I really thought I wanted to capture what that feeling was when I was there. And this is 10 years plus ago. So things are a little bit simpler. Life wasn't as connected. We weren't always on our phones and emails. So, but it really was for me an escape from, I was in a very, pointy end of psychiatric emergency help and health care where I was in the hospital. So it was just a place where I felt safe. It was fun, and just to kind of bottle that. But I also had a little bit of a curiosity. Being a public servant working in, the government, you finish your studies, you go into a role and you work up through stages. So it's, you do year 1, then you do year 2, year 3, and you get these incremental pay increases. And I hadn't really had any exposure to anybody else. That a lot of my friends worked in professions as well that were similar. But I started to develop a curiosity about people who worked for themselves. And I know this might sound, a little bit out there, but I had a PT that I started training with, and she ran her own business. And it just made me think that there could be other ways of doing things and not just kind of the path that I was on. I also financially, to touch, there's a part of being in the public service. It's great. There's a lot of stability, but the pay system is very incremental, and it's level 1, this pay, then level 2, this pay. And eventually you reach the top, which is about year 7 to 9, and it caps out. And then you're on for the rest of your life, CPI, or just, unless you go and become, a senior or a manager or that, you could be around 30 years old, and you've hit the top. And I felt that there was something in me that felt there has to be a little bit more. And for the things that I wanted to do, and we might go there, but I have a brother with an intellectual disability. So I've kind of got this thing in me that wants to look after people and do a bit more. And I felt that where I wasn't going to get where I needed to be or where I wanted to be. So curiosity, escapism, and I didn't want to leave full-time the health system. I saw that people that worked in the health system that lasted the longest, so a few senior clinicians, they didn't work full-time there. So I thought having a side hustle to kind of break the rhythm of there would sustain my longevity as being a psychologist. So a bit of everything.
But I was going to say that answer is like literally all of the pieces, that it's like the perfect storm. And for the listeners, I have the benefit of knowing Dani for the last year or two and a lot more of your story, which, there's such beautiful aspects that you touched on there around perhaps the being a psychologist in the system was heavy duty on you emotionally, and then wanting to provide for your family is two really big catalysts there. And then I also know about you that you're quite creative, and I love this idea that the concept of being a little bit entrepreneurial, or kind of like the perfect storm arrived and it worked for you.
Yes. And that's it. It's about, I think, it was swirling around. And then the timing was, we look back, we started Kulani Kinis in 2015. It was all a culmination of events led up to it, with trying different things and then also having this space and, having a resource in my hand. So I often credit the Timothy Ferris 4-hour work week, but it was just, things sometimes the stars have to align, and you have to have the idea of swimwear bikinis. That is not revolutionary. It's not saving or changing the world, but it just all lined up and it was the right moment, and kind of took the opportunity and went for it and didn't overthink it. So
the 4-hour work week by Timothy Ferris also was quite profound for me about 14 or 15 years ago, and pretty early in my entrepreneurial journey. And I think in hindsight, whilst such a dramatically epic book, and the concepts of being able to very simply sell something to be able to reclaim your time from, say, working for the man, for example, which is my very subtle way of saying being employed by someone else. The thing that's really ironic in all of this, Dani, is now that you and Alex have built this massive empire with 50 million a year revenue and 70 staff, I'm pretty sure you don't work 4 hours a week, just like I also don't work 4 hours a week.
Yes. The irony was, so initially we wanted to create something that would make enough that we'd be able to go back to Hawaii each year. That was really just the goal. And I think we giggle because I think it took us 3 or 4 years to actually get back to Hawaii. From starting, we thought we'd be there, every 6 months or so. No. And I don't think, I'm being very honest, we had our first actual proper holiday where we could not have to check email. Well, we do still check emails, but that was probably 8 years into the business. So yes, and we're still working crazy hours. There's no sugarcoating that.
I agree. So I think that Tim Ferriss has a lot to show us about the ideas of thinking entrepreneurial, but then executing it is just another story.
Yeah, I love that, Lisa. I didn't know that you had that connection too. So we'll have to trade stories of what gravitated, what was calling you to that. So.
Totally. I think that is like a really big part of, it's this podcast, it's our beautiful listeners right now, and it's the wider audience out there for female founders, is that all of us, I think, have had this inherent curiosity along the sides. I also worked my way up in corporate, but I always dreamed about, actually it was food businesses, which I probably wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole right now, but definitely hard work and not a lot of money. But that was my passion, being a foodie. And I think for all of us, there's something that we poke the idea of. And I think his book gave us all permission to think, well, it's actually possible. I think that's where the 4-hour work week sits, is not so much that anyone can actually work 4 hours a week. It's like the concept that we could jump ship and be entrepreneurial. It's possible. It's the possibility book is maybe how I might retitle it.
No, I love that. So it's the hope and the
hope.
It's a dream.
And 10 years now for Kulani Kinis. That's massive.
Yes. Yeah. We celebrated our birthday in February. So that's when we officially kicked off. It's 10 and a little bit, because we started working on samples and kind of the, behind the scenes of Shopify for about 6 months. It was offline. And then we launched in February 2015. So officially we had 10 years in a couple of months ago.
So let's cast our minds back to 2015 then, and tell us, I know you attended your first trade show in Huntington Beach in California, and I really want to know For our listeners today, I know wholesale's been a really big part of your journey. We want to talk about that and unpack it a bit today because so many she-compreneurs out there assume that D2C and the e-commerce Shopify store is the only way to power a business. And it simply isn't. There's got to be multiple ways that we go to market with a product. But I really want to know, tell us about that very first trade show and how did it change the trajectory of your brand's growth?
I love this topic and I could go, there's so many, we'll have to bear with me as I go through it all and try and recall it all. So yes, diversification it's amazing to have direct to consumer. Obviously profit is better, but wholesale is really what we credit to giving Kulani the legs and the visibility and the longevity that she's had. And it's let us last the distance. So 2015, we start Kulani Kinis. Alex and I do have to shout out that we had an opportunity to move to LA. So I know that sometimes attending trade shows overseas, the barrier is getting there, the cost of flights and accommodation and all of that adds up. So we were very lucky to be living in downtown LA, which was about an hour and 3/4 from Huntington Beach. Huntington's a little bit south. So we had that opportunity because we'd laid some stones a little bit earlier with Alex's work. So he was working for Ernst & Young. So we had a transfer and he went there, moved there in November. And I was in the apartment while he would go to work. In America, they work 15-hour days, no weekends. So I was in this little bubble. I'd quit the hospital because I wasn't able to hold my job open. I was there for a couple of weeks and I'd heard of trade shows. We're not from the industry, so I didn't really have any knowledge of retail, but I was listening to Shopify Masters have a podcast. I'm not sure if it's still around, but it was run by Felix and there were a lot of brands talking about how they got established, a lot of US brands, and they kept mentioning the word trade shows, trade fairs. Before we'd left Sydney to go to LA, I dropped our swimwear at a few shops. That's how I thought that you would get a retailer. It's very humbling to drop samples into a store, leave them for the manager or the owner, come back a week later to collect them because you don't have enough stock to let them stay there. And then for them to tell you to your face, no, thank you. So So I had a lot of rejection, but in Australia, there is no real swim and retail trade show. I know there's some lifestyle and there's toy fairs and there's different categories, but in terms of apparel and fashion, the US is really where it is and Europe. So I'd learned at these shows, Googled swimwear trade show, found because swimwear is quite a niche market, there aren't as many big trade shows. There are a lot of fashion and apparel shows at, New York, Vegas, where you'd have to kind of work out maybe which has the best foot traffic, what might be best suited for your category and who attends that show. But for swim, there was really 3 stand out, and which made it a lot easier to narrow down. And being that we were living in LA, I picked the one that was in Los Angeles, which was close to where we were. There was another one, there's a big one in Miami, but that would have been a 6-hour flight and we didn't have the funds to get there. So the show was in January. They have it twice a year because a lot of these trade shows are often a couple of times a year or they're annually at the same time. Registrations had closed, picked up the phone because I think that is something that we miss a lot these days. We don't, we hide behind our computers, we're on our phones, we're messaging. But I thought, I've got nothing to lose, nothing to do. I'll just ring and see if there's any way that I can get a spot. Trade shows are all about, they are a business themselves. They have to sell sell booths, maximize vendors and retailers meeting and floor space. So they will, if they can, I think, make room to get another registration and get you in there. So spoke to the manager who was organizing it, and he happened to be Australian. So being an Australian in America, and he was living also in LA, we connected. So it's all about connections, and you just never know who's going to be on the end of the phone. He said, haven't heard of your brand, because we were not even, probably 9 months old by then. But he said, let me see what I can do. So we were really lucky with trade shows. If it's your first time, you have to do your time, I guess, and you'll usually be put in an area where the new brands are. And we were certainly in that area. It's in usually the entryway when everyone's walking through to go down to the established brands. So in the established brands, there's the likes of Billabong, Sea Folly, Tiger Lily was there then. And that was there were 2 areas. There's the entry and then a ballroom down the stairs. And I would have loved to be in the ballroom, but I think it's a matter of turning up and being there consistently year on year to get your spot and earn your stripes down there. So we were up in the front bit, but because we were tacked on as a late entry, we were put at the top of the stairs on the back of some booths. So everybody's booths faced the entrance. We were on the back facing the top of the stairs that went down to the ballroom. So everybody missed us when they whizzed past. You couldn't see us. They went down to the ballroom, did all of their appointments all day. But as they came up the stairs, there we were, our brand, Alex and I. Alex is my other half and husband. He took a couple of days off work to do the show. Standing there with our Kulani lights up, we had our big, beautiful imagery. quick side note on that, imagery just catches attention. We had this gorgeous big rainbow bikini up that we had no money to get campaign imagery, but we traded swimwear, not with influencers, but with photographers taking the images of the models. So that's a hack sometimes, to gift product to people, either makeup artists, stylists, or photographers, not always the talent and, the content. Yeah. So anyway, we had this big, beautiful image that we were able to use, and we captured the buyers as they were coming up. They were ready to go home. They probably had big, long days, but we just said, "Hi, we're Dani and Alex." We used our accents to get attention because it's always a point of difference. And we, at that point, because there was only the two of us, we had low overheads. We were able to sell our swimwear at a much lower price point than most other brands, because we just didn't have the costs that all the other brands had and expenses. So we just straight away threw out, that's our point of difference. Great quality. We're from Australia, and our price point, is $20 US, which is, was unheard of. It was a little bit more. But so that caused some people to stop and actually have appointments, or trade shows usually run over a few days. So they were like, well, I've had a big day today. If I've got time, or I'll might pop back tomorrow or the next day. So we were really lucky that, and another thing that I've observed, a lot of people at trade shows are run by reps or people that work within the business, and they don't have that hunger. They're going to work. It's just their day. Instead of being in the office, they're at a trade show, a trade fair. They've set up their booth, and it's their norm. But for us, we were just excited. We didn't sit behind the desk nervously and behind our computer, which I see a lot of time happens. And we still carry this when we go to Miami Swim. We make sure our whole team is at the front of the booth and just catching eyes, greeting, saying hi. You get lots of people ignoring you and just like smiling politely, but just hi, have a good morning. Do you want to come in and have a look? Is there anything we can answer? It is a lot of energy, but it really paid off. And we had set a goal that we didn't want to make money from the show. We wanted to cover the show. And if we could cover the cost of the show, it meant that we could probably come back. This show, Swim Collective, it's still running, and we're going back in July this year. It runs twice a year. So we thought we would, if we could cover the cost, land a purchase order, deliver that, we would come back in July. That was our goal. So most of the appointments had a look at the line, and they said, if you're here next year, we'll sit down and we might put a purchase order in. So we knew that they just wanted to see that we could last the distance, we could deliver to other brands, and that we had the ability to survive, I guess, the climate and what was going on with all of the other brands. So we made a few great connections. You collect all the cards, staple them into your book, write notes about them, send the follow-up emails. It's all about that constant touch point and connection. And we were very lucky that we landed a couple of orders. One was actually Billabong. So Billabong owned a few surf stores in Hawaii, and we sold to one of their, I guess they had a brand called Honolulu Surf, which stocked other brands. That gave us a lot of belief in ourselves. But yeah, the show was good. It just covered costs and meant that we could then go to that next show in July. So we spent the next few months, Alex back at work, me doing little things in the bikini bubble, making sure I kept connections. And then when we registered for that show again, I kept in contact with the show owner as well. That was really important, just to say, thank you so much for having us. Is there anything we could learn, or is there anything that I can prepare for next time? She actually connected us, always asking. She connected us with the boys from Venroy. It's a brand here in Australia. They had been doing the trade fair circuit for a while, and they had was able to have a really good call with them to learn some tips. So you just have to ask and never know that who will share. And then, I know I'm going on here, but I'll get there. The next show we went back to, Alex and I were probably in a worse spot than the first show. And we were really kind of a bit disheartened. I thought, wow, we've been working, it's our second time. We've come back and we didn't get that golden spot because we were actually put in a proper spot. We were out in the entryway and they'd changed venues. So we weren't in the big ballroom, but it wasn't as great a spot. But it actually ended up being that we were positioned next to a brand, and we didn't know it at the time, but it played out during the few days. It was Kingdom Estate, which was owned by Tan Safdie, who is on Queer Eye for a Straight Guy. He was just starting the process of that show and going on to Netflix, and he was selling his brand. And I deep down know that Jane, who was the trade show owner, and Shannon put us there out with him because she knew it would be quiet and we would have time to talk. And he handed us so many gems and little notes throughout the show between appointments. And he was the reason that we were able to connect with a major retailer there, because he pointed out a girl and said, don't let her walk past your booth. You must get her in. Yeah. So I just think, and he always said, just pay it forward. He said, I'm going to tell you all this stuff. And I'm on my way out of swim. Good luck. And yeah, off you go. So yes, trade shows have been a really big part of our journey. And we then came back to Swim Collective again. We have been going on and off for, with COVID offered a little bit of a break. But then the next major show was Miami, which we had to start that journey again. It's a totally new trade show owner. We were at the very back. There's like 1,000 brands and we were on the very, very edge. But over the years, we've worked our way through the aisles and now we're more in the center, in that center position. But it's about consistency and time. And yes, I'm just trying to think what else I share. But we had the brand up to 50% wholesale. And 50% D2C. However, as we've grown in terms of revenue, we've had to pull that back. So we have that suppressed under 20% now, but I can go into that. That's more of a strategy.
You have wholesale suppressed to under 20%. Hey, lovely. If you're feeling stuck trying to scale your e-commerce business, I want you to know you're not alone. So many women come to us feeling overwhelmed, unsure of what to focus on next. And that's why we created Shecom Academy, a world-leading program designed to give you the roadmap, coaching, and the community to grow with confidence. And here's the best part. We're so confident in what we teach that we guarantee you'll triple your investment within 12 months, or we'll keep working with you for free until you do. No risk or reward. If you're ready to ditch the overwhelm and start scaling with a clear plan, head to shecom.co. I'd love to see you inside. How interesting. Let's break a little bit of this down for our listeners. I love that share. Ladies, if you aren't already familiar with Dani, you need to be. She's the kindest, loveliest, cleverest, and a most amazing lady. One of the most amazing ladies I've had the pleasure of meeting in my journey in e-commerce, and I'm literally hanging off every word you just said. And a couple of things I want to iterate. And I think it's really important to remind listeners of a very key theme you've just shared there, Dani, which is that for everybody, wholesale trade fairs are always expensive and scary. And at any point in anyone's journey, there's always a risk in doing them. However, you're 100% right. My experience also is that buyers will wait to see you there potentially a few years in a row before they'll place big orders. It's almost like they're testing you to make sure you're legitimately going to be around because they don't want to waste their time with small businesses that come and go. So I also see that from every part of my experience as well. That is true. But I also do believe you're right. And that is another thing that you and I do have in common, Dani, is that I also am a huge fan of pushing every single connection you make in the kindest possible way to find out who that person can connect you to or how they could help you in your journey. It's why, I tell a story that when I couldn't figure out how to send bulky nappies around Australia with my Eco Originals brand, I reached out to Justin Dry, who's the founder of Vino Mofo, and he ended up giving me like a couple of hours of his time over a month telling us how they solved bulky wine deliveries around Australia. And in a similar capacity to your very first trade show owner who lined you up with some cool connections, that ladies, just ask, be so inherently curious and be so kind. And a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine to the right person that is unexpected will make you so memorable that you'd be surprised by where that can come back and repay you.
Lisa, and just reflecting on this, I've made a mental note that I need to go back to Jane. She's now left the swim trade shows, but I need to send her an email and just say thank you. So it's just another touch point. And she has this lady that I can build on this lady actually connected us with our current, so our wholesale model now is that we have a sales rep. So she's our head of sales and she sits as a contractor in LA. So we have a little internal team, but we have a freelance and she's commission based. And so it works really well for us. And she was with one of our competitors and she is an absolute weapon. And it was the connection with the trade show owner knew that during COVID, their team was made redundant and she knew that she was looking for somewhere to go and she made the introduction and connection. So it's continued and snowballed on. So I'm really, really thankful. The other part of that is we really maximized in those early days the EMDG grants. They were pivotal to us affording to get to the shows and to making those connections. So I know that the model's changed a little bit now, but it really, that was very, very
well. Gabby and Enzo, Gabby's one of our coaches here at Shecom, they literally just used the EMDG grant this year to go to the New York Toy Fair, I think it was. So it does still exist, and I 100% agree with you. Gabby also has leveraged the power of grants to grow their brand exponentially overseas too. So you heard it here first. If you're not already applying and using something like the EMDG grant, go stalk it and find out how you might be able to harness it to help you get to some international growth, which is all about exports. But I want to jump over, you mentioned 20% wholesale. So ladies, we're always talking about a percentage of your business. So 12 eggs in 12 baskets. How do you diversify and have multi-channel marketing? And that's both the marketing, it's also about where your products are found and sold. And it might make a mixture of distributors. It might be that you're selling directly to bricks and mortar stores. It could be other online retailers, the likes of the Iconic and Amazon or some of those kind of marketplaces. And then you've got your own D2C business. And I know you mentioned 50% earlier, but now it's 20. Like, tell us, Dani, like why?
That switch happened during COVID. So I know that that's a time that has, I guess, hopefully won't be replicated anytime soon. It was 50-50, and the brand was still profitable, but it wasn't as profitable as it is now. So, and COVID forced us to make that switch and that jump. And I think we were worried that if we didn't carry on at that 50% that then, we wouldn't keep growing here. But it gave us the opportunity to take, because all of our purchase orders were cancelled. So we'd been to 2 trade shows, locked in all of these orders, at trade fairs, you write up purchase orders, you put everything into production that's for delivery in a few months' time. COVID comes and everyone cancelled everything. And we thought that was going to be it. Everything was we had all this stock and no one was going to buy it. But 2 to 3 weeks later, all the stores were closed and everybody turned on, looked at the online world and began ordering. So we were very lucky that we had the inventory. But that gave us the opportunity to see that switch and then seeing the profit that came from that and think, okay, that is really then going to allow us to be able to do things that we want to do, which is bigger PR moments, put more into our brand and campaigns, hire better talent, more talent, and just grow our team. So really having that gave us the opportunity to see that. And I think another thing that we started to learn is, so we're very lucky that our supplier, there's 2 parts to this. Sometimes having one supplier is amazing because you're vertically integrated and there's no queue, you are the queue. However, diversification, having eggs in many baskets is always something. So there's a little bit of a balance there. We were filling up our pipeline with wholesale orders, which was great, but also slowing our own production, meaning our own D2C orders weren't able to be filled fast enough and restocked, which meant that we were losing profit in that way. So it was really about just finding the sweet spot. So we said around 15 to 20%. It also, we found, we're very lucky. We have 600 stockists or so in the US. That comes, though, that velocity means we weren't able to nurture them as much as we'd hoped, because that's a big part of our values, is that we want to, just as we would with our customer, a wholesaler and a retailer is a customer. So we just didn't want to have the brand kind of here, there, and everywhere, not really aware of the territories, the postcodes, who's got what product, being able to offer them marketing support, do competitions, feature them on socials, all of that we like to do. We really have a way that we work with our wholesalers, which we think is very special. We didn't want to set and forget, sell, and then good luck. We really wanted to ensure for their success and for them to come back, they have to have sell-through. And they need your support as the brand to have that sell through. And so we try in so many different ways. We might have a neon sign. We do gift with purchases for free. We give them extra product as something if there's something that's a bit slow for us, that's a little bit old, have this, no cost, sell it how you want to, and use that to hopefully pay for future orders. So we work in all different ways. And when we were there was no way we could sustain that level of care and community at a 50%. We had to bring it right down. So that's one of the reasons, or big part of the reasons, why we sit at there around 15 to 20%.
Running an e-commerce business can feel lonely, right? Like no one in your world really understands what you do. And that's why I started SheCom, to create a space where women in e-commerce can connect, grow, and support each other. Whether you're starting or scaling to your biggest months yet, there's a place for you here inside SheCom. Inside of our community, we share strategies, wins, and real talk about what it takes to grow a brand you love. Come on over and join us at Instagram at SheCom_co, because happiness is better when we do it together. I love that, actually. It's a really valid point. I think when you're looking at wholesale, it's easy to think a scattergun approach of having your product everywhere is of value to a brand if it's just another purchase order. But you're 100% right. As a brand, you lose control of how it's even merchandised as well. And so suddenly your product can be on discount shelves, which speaks negatively about your brand as opposed to positively if it's a more nurtured wholesale environment. So I love that. Let's move over now and have a chat about team. So you mentioned you've got a little bit of an outsourced team, a contracted team in LA, but you have around about 70 people in the Kulani Kinis team. I know you have a big warehouse in Sydney and you proudly have amazing team events there. It's very much an environment. It's probably quite aligned with SheCom in the sense that you guys also have a bit of fun and playfulness as a team. But I'd love to know, in the last 10 years, psychologist, now you're like the boss of 70 people. Like, what are your outstanding lessons in this space? What did you fuck up and what did you learn? And what kind of boss are you now?
We're still making fuck ups. I think big thing is that we're always learning and it is a journey and we are in the trenches with everybody. So it's been a wild ride, this part. So I'm actually sitting in the office. Over here is we have flexible work. So a lot of the team are at home, especially being a long weekend, we're around, people are making use of that. So we've got the office and the warehouse sits across from me as well. So we have a big part of it has been from going from 5 to 10 to 20 to 40. It's trying to grow because we're very, very lucky that we have a low turnover as well. So we have high retention of our staff. So growing the team and their abilities and their confidence and their roles whilst the business grows without having to naturally think of, I think a lot of people think as businesses grow, when you're at 1 million revenue. So we've got some of the team members that most of them have been with us from 3 to 5 million. And now we're doing over 50 million. A lot of people think that's different, I guess, skills and different people you'd need to bring in other talent, but not necessarily. We are really about growing and supporting our teams and homing within the business or shifting into different roles so that we can keep that, because those people that have been with us really understand the culture and they understand the brand. And then as we have had to add people in that might offer a different strategy piece or different skill set, they're able to absorb that culture and that brand understanding and story from the big core cohort and the heart that are there. So that has been, I think, very pivotal, I guess, for us, in that you just don't think, okay, new kind of territory, new revenue, we're a new scale, we need to get new people in. It's really growing the team to get to that point and then using everyone together to support and hold each other. A big thing that we have done is that we used to sit on a floor with 5 to 10 of us, the 2 founders and everybody just around and listening. As you get bigger and everybody's working, in different locations, because we have some people overseas, we have people working from home, different teams coming in. We've got offices now where doors get closed. We used to not have that. It was just, you could hear every conversation. We've really had to learn about the importance of communication. And we are still, when we mess that up, some people feel it's, as teams get more specialized and dig into what they own, it's really, I have a lot of visibility across a few things and a few people do, but it's really about reminding ourselves you've got to constantly share that. And there have been times where maybe you forget because you just forget what other people aren't seeing or knowing. So it's, we mess up there and we're constantly reflecting and trying to do better, but we don't always get it right. So we've put a few little systems where we have a leadership team. So we call it our LT, and we have a management team, which is our MT, and then we have the crew. So we really try and flow information and cascade through those channels. But we don't have it all figured out. Still working on it. But yeah, we've got.
What I want to point out though, and I think this is a really interesting piece that I just got from what you shared, is along the lines of like, as leaders, our teams and our culture in our businesses, they're really reflective of who we are as people. And I think the fact that you've made the people that were with you at 3 mil that are still with you now at 50 mil work is a testament to how kind you and Alex are. Like, you're heart-centered, lovely, kind humans. And I think that people would want to stay working for you, and that culture would flow through everywhere, because it's a complete and utter mirror reflection of the way that you guys are and how lovely and kind you are. So I think we all have an opportunity as founders to think, what am I flowing down through my team? And if I've got problems where people are unhappy or they fracture off or there's a toxic element that comes in, like, where did it come in and how did I allow that? If my business is a reflection of me, where did that come in? You talk a bit about North Star and Stardust, and I'd love to know, these are things that fuel you and what you're made of, and I'd love to know more about what that is.
Yeah, I love that. So they're my 2 terms because I think It's hard work. And sometimes it's just, I'll say it's shit. Like you are working on average at the moment, I'm getting up around 4:30 or 5 a.m., working in the morning before I've got two beautiful boys, quickly seeing them and then going to work all day, whether it's back-to-back meetings most of the time, and then coming home very quickly, having dinner, and then probably doing some more work. And it's that maybe 6 days a week. So there has to be something that's driving you to do that. I think otherwise, why would you push that hard? So that's why I have spent a bit of time thinking about what is the North Star, and that it goes right back to the start, which was to escape and to financially, I've talked about my brother, I just touched on that I have this, that's a whole other thing.
You tell us though, Dani, like I think it's really relevant for listeners to understand, like we need to have a reason why.
Yes, something that is pushing you and fueling you so that when times are tough that you have that. So yeah, Lee's my older brother. There's just the two of us. He's 4 years older than me. We're both babies of the 80s, born in the 80s with a severe intellectual disability. And so I've grown up not knowing any other than, and not that mum and dad, it's no fault of theirs, but you as a little person, you will naturally be a caregiver. And it's just part of your role to look after this person who isn't as capable. So I've had that responsibility, and then probably just being part of my personality, have felt that when I ultimately will have to look after Lee, and he is currently in New South Wales, that's where I live. We've got the NDIS, so he's part, mum and dad had to disown him when he turned 18 to become like a warden of the state, which is a really big thing for our family, so that he has that long-term care, because I think it costs millions to keep somebody in a home yearly forever with 24/7 care. So he lives with 5 boys. So the care is amazing, but it's not to the level that you would probably hope for your family. And so I always had a goal that maybe one day I could somehow look after him and provide that care. But it would cost a lot. So, and I just realized that at where I was 10 years ago, I probably was never going to be able to get there, barely able to get a mortgage and afford that for myself. So this has been a way to get there. And Alex and I were very lucky last year that we were able to, Lee's house was for sale. The organization that look after him were going to rehome the boys. They'd been together for 10 years, 15 years actually. And it was going to be very disruptive. But Alex and I were able to anonymously purchase the home, and we have the boys staying there together, which is just incredible that we could do that. So that is when things are tough, that's the North Star. So that is what's fueling me when I'm like, why am I waking up and doing this? It's that. But in that now, I have that same care for our team and the brand, and our makers of our swimwear, our suppliers of our swimwear are like family. So I feel Alex was just in China 2 weeks ago, and he said he saw the team there because we hadn't been for a couple of years. And he said just the enormity of the production and the operation and how many people rely on us. So we really do, a big part of the North Star is that we have created this world for these people and for everyone here. And we want to continue it growing and being successful so that we can keep it going and keep it going for everyone. So that's your North Star. So you really have to nail that, to get through the tough times. And then your Stardust is, I say, what you're made of, and it's your personality, it's your strengths, it's your values. And we drew our team Kulani values from, we looked at my journey. That's something that we did with our head of people and culture. She was incredible. She said, reflect, look on what has got you here, and let's bottle that and put that into the brand and speak to that. So we have Buckle Up Buttercup. So I'm a little hustler. Lisa, I think you are too, in that, it's just, and that's that picking up the phone. I love collaborations. My goal is to do collaborations with billion-dollar brands. Got a pitch and have on Good Friday, which is tomorrow, at 6 a.m., I'm going to be presenting something to a team in America. So always hustling. So never lose that, no matter what your size is. We have small things matter. So really, obsess over the details. We're not all perfect. It doesn't have to be 80% there to get things out and going. So depending on your team, some things do have to be really perfect, but we have, small things matter, attention to detail. We have Be Magnetic. So we talk a lot about being kind, and that kindness compounds, and that attracts that warmth, attracts goodness and building relationships. So, and we have No Risk, No Magic is our 4th value, which is, just take the leap, because no risk, no story. You've got nothing to lose. So that's a little bit of the Stardust.
Gosh, I've got goosebumps. I know you and I really like each other, but I think we do have a lot of real similarities in the space that I could use different words, but with similar alignments, and how amazing it must feel to work for you, Dani. Like, I can see why people would follow you and stay working for you for a long time, because there's so little out there in the world of businesses that would embrace a lot of those pieces of kindness and a bit of magic in a business. That's really quite incredible. And I'd love to touch on, like, how do you and Alex go juggling the boys and raising a family? I mean, it's no small feat building a $50 million empire with your husband and raising children at the same time. Like, give us any mindset or boundary shifts you've had to make that work.
We haven't figured that out either. Every year for the last few years I've had on my, goals or resolutions is balance, that word. And this year and last year I just struck it off, put a big fat line through it and was like, get stuffed. The pressure to find balance was always there because that's what we're kind of told to find, and to be successful, you have to have that. But the reality is you can have balance, but it would have to be a smaller scale, or you'd have to have a lot more systems in place, or there would have to be more people working, so there would be less profit and less ability to do things. So for us to have the cash flow in the business and to be able to flex and do what we want and be agile, we have to work hard with the team that we have and not have that balance. So I let go of that pressure. And that has led to, I used to loved, Alex and I met at the gym. Fitness was a really big part of our lives, but we're probably at our least fit, which is not a great reflection, but it is what it is. You can't have the 4 gas stove, the analogy of the 4 burners going. I think at max you can have 2 to 3, which is our boys, our business, and that's probably it. Friendships, little things have dropped here and there, but I just know I've surrendered to that and I'm at peace with it and not fighting it. And then in time, those things will shift when they need to, and I'll work that there. So yeah, it's a lot. Working with your partner is intense. So yeah, we try and stay out of each other's way.
So clearly defined roles in the business then.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's 50, it's design, brand and content. And then when it kind of kicks into marketing, e-commerce, finance, and that part, we hand the baton over. There is the crossover, but yeah, there's probably, I would say some of our team have seen some disagreements at times, but we try really hard to keep it, and not slip into your relationship self at work and be your professional self. But it is blurry. We don't have it all worked out. We're not perfect, but we give it our best shot.
I want to give kudos to you for taking the whole balance thing off the table. Like, I didn't realize that about you. And I think that is a really big deal. I also think that there's this unfair expectation on women that we'll be able to navigate it all and we can still meditate and kumbaya along the same line as we build empires and raise families. And it is just not fucking possible. I would also agree with you. I'm a 4 a.m.er and I'm up and at it. And anybody who tries to tell me that I'm, tired all the time and I need to rest, and you can't actually do it all. And I think you're right. Some things need to slip off, but I like the idea of just saying, well, fuck off boundaries for a while. If for now I'm all in, I think probably on our nervous systems, it's not sustainable forever. But, like you, I've made peace for the next 3 years. Right now in 2025, I'm saying till 2028, I'm going to hustle like a motherfucker because my business needs to scale like a motherfucker. And eventually I will sell, exit, and twiddle my thumbs and sing kumbaya. But right now, is it not the kumbaya moment? So I think it's okay sometimes to recognize seasons in our life. And I once had a mentor a long time ago who talked about seasons of the year, seasons in our life. Like, you don't start a business in winter, you start it in summer when things are prolific and can grow and be fertile. And I think we have periods in our own lives. And right now I am not in a winter. I am like in a bloody hauling spring where we are going mental growing stuff. And that's tiring, but it's also exciting and entrepreneurially aroused at the moment. The team are all like on fire, and you can't have balance when that shit is happening. So
yeah. And that's it. I get a lot of, there is an adrenaline that comes with work. I get energy from work, and that's, yes, it's addictive. There's a lot of podcasts out there and people say it's addictive. It's, it's probably a dopamine release, not great, but it's what is fueling me. It's what's getting us there. So it's working. We'll just roll with it.
What I've noticed on that, because I agree, I get dopamine from the business too. The only time that I'm stopped in that is if I'm worried about money. So the handbrake, on the adrenaline excitement of building a business as if I think there's going to be a cash flow problem coming up, and then that shit keeps me sleepless. So as soon as I've solved it and made some changes, which, to be clear, never stops happening in business. I mean, you have moments where you're not worried about cash, but it's cyclical. It comes and goes. It doesn't matter what revenue level you're at. There are hurdles. There could be market changes. There could be tariffs. Like, who fucking knows? There could be orange Cheeto puffs in the world doing weird shit. It is just the nature of being an entrepreneur. And I think I can also like be okay and go hell for leather and be okay with this, except I sometimes don't like the opposite to dopamine when you get fearful about cash flow. But that's our job then to fix it.
Yep. Have had those tummy pains and know those feels. And it's, you're on top of the world. It's a wild ride. You're on top of the world. And the next minute you're questioning everything. And I think honestly, at the end of the day, you have to say, if everything went away tomorrow, were you happy with the journey you just had? If you were, then keep going.
I love that. I love that. I want to ask you 5 quick questions. This is a new thing we're bringing into the potty, listeners, because we're always trying to mix it up over here, and we're always interested in your feedback too, by the way. I love to know like what you do enjoy about the potty. Do you want me to ask more personal questions? Do you want it to be more technical about building and scaling e-com brands? Like, feel free to DM me, drop over into Lisa Jones _co and tell me in the DMs, like, what would you like to have on the potty? But we just did a little potty huddle last week, and we decided that what could be a bit fun is to do 5 and 5. So I'm going to try it with you today, Dani, and we'll run it through the next few guests and we'll see. So this is 5 fast questions, snap answers only. Let's dive in. 1 word that describes you that would surprise people.
Competitive. Maybe that's not, maybe this year, but I'm very competitive inside. So yeah.
I think that's like a prerequisite for being a really successful businesswoman. I'm going to be frank. Yeah. 1 word to describe running a business.
Relentless. Yeah.
First thing you do when you feel stuck.
Cry.
A brand you're obsessed with right now.
I love home interiors. Gustav Westman. He does these bubbly, chunky glasses. They are the cutest little wine cups and coffee cups. Gustav Westman. Yeah.
Love it. Biggest business lesson in 1 sentence.
Ooh. Just start. Less is more. Knowing less is more. So I think, yeah, go for it. Give it a go.
Don't know if you don't know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I just think I'm glad we didn't know everything. So I just think, yeah, try not to learn too much. Just get in there, get your boots dirty.
So that kind of wraps up the potty today. And I want to finish it by just asking you, I guess, if you could go back in time to that 2015 when you're at the trade show, is there one thing that you might say to yourself as you're standing with your big smile at the top of the stairs, looking out, wondering, is this going to fucking work? Like, what's one thing you might say to yourself back then?
I'd just say, don't change who you are. And through the process and as you go through things, you can lose a little bit of yourself, and you'll have experiences which are some of the hardest, and that might, warp or change your perspective on things. But I think really try and hold that essence of why you started and who you are, and hold that close and keep carrying that forward. So yeah.
I love that so much. And ladies, if you've enjoyed listening to Dani today, I have a little secret to tell you. Dani is very quietly one of our mentors here at SheCom and sits inside a little secret program we have in our Scale Mastermind. This is for ladies that are growing their revenues, and we have a little secret circle in there called Circle. And Dani and another amazing podcast guest we've recently had on here, Madeline Eliza, they hold a little circle in there for the women who are scaling revenues that need access to people like Dani and Madeline to get unstuck in their businesses and to get some of the strategies that Dani and Madeline have used to get massive hyper growth in companies. And we love having you in there. And Dani, and I know the ladies are like so lucky to be able to have access to chat with you every week, and they sit in a WhatsApp group, and that's pretty cool. So if you're interested in finding out more about Scale and Circle, head over to our website, which is shecom.co. And if you loved this episode, whether you're on Apple or Spotify, make sure you hit that follow button so you get notified when the next episode of She Talks drops. Thank you for joining me today, Dani.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me. It's been awesome. And I love the Circle group. They're a wonderful group of women.
They are. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of She Talks. I hope today's conversation sparked ideas, gave you strategies you can put into action, and reminded you that you're never alone on this journey. If you loved this episode, head over to shecom.co for today's show notes, exclusive freebies, and special offers from our sponsors. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss a future episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep building, and most importantly, keep talking.